Magic Conj, will I ever get to meet Tom Kenny?
Maybe someday.
Oh, so you're saying there's a chance. Okay. Should I tell fans of the show how they can support us?
Yes.
Goofy Goobers, supporting the show is shockingly easier than catching a blue jellyfish. Right from our Anchor page, anchor.fm/spongepod, you can find links to all of our social media and a support button if you happen to have a few extra clams. Also follow us on twitch.tv/SpongeBob Podcast, where it's not only the official home to our sister show, Video Bob Game Pants, it's also where I stream live drawings of various Nickelodeon characters and host the opportunity for commissions and giveaways. Lastly, the official merchandise store is now open at redbubble.com/people/SpongePod, where various designs will be uploaded inspired by our show, including our official logo, which is now available on a multitude of products like t-shirts, stickers, duvet covers, and even a shower curtain. This is a podcast by a fan, for fans, and will always be fan-driven. Any way you see fit on supporting our show is much appreciated. Thank you, and enjoy. Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to another episode of I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast. I'm Captain Eric, and we are continuing our sail through the first season of SpongeBob Squarepants. This episode, we are tackling the Chaperone. I want to give a huge shout out to our guests this week, Brandon and Skylar of Truman Pictures. They are animators on the SpongeBob Squarepants movie Rehydrated collab. And they were a last-minute guest. I was actually talking to Skylar. He had originally signed up for an episode coming out next year. So you're going to be hearing these guys later on in our run. But I was just kind of talking with him, and I had a guest fall through this week. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we just record for this episode? So we had an absolutely wonderful 2-hour conversation. I, of course, had to edit it down a little bit. But speaking to these guys, they're close to my age, so we kind of grew up with the same cartoons and had a lot of the same likes and dislikes, and it was just wonderful to talk with them. It was super nostalgic. It's nice to be able to talk with people who shared similar experiences, especially when you were pretty much seemingly all into the same things. So we had a wonderful conversation about the collab, their work, the shows we thought were underappreciated in the 90s on both Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and I can't wait to have these two on again in the future. So massive shout out to Brandon and Skylar for coming on such short notice. If you'd like to follow any of their social media, go to our podcast description, follow any of the links to the YouTube channel or any of the social media. I think roughly around the same age. When was the first time you ever encountered SpongeBob? Like, what was the earliest thought you can remember?
So I remember getting like hyped for the show, like when it was coming out, 1999, I believe.
Yeah.
And I remember that Saturday morning, like walking downstairs, and my parents and my sister were already watching the show. Like it was already on. And I was like, whoa, what is this? I remember my dad claims that he discovered, quote unquote, he's pulling like a Columbus or something. He discovered both the Powerpuff Girls and SpongeBob SquarePants. He was like, I'm the one who first saw that ad with Sandy saying, hold on there, little square dude, and I'm the one who told you about it. And I'm like, okay, Dad, I guess you discovered it.
One of these years, you should definitely buy him just a little award or a little plaque. Like, congratulations on first discovering SpongeBob SquarePants.
Never mind Steven Hillenburg or all the writers and directors. It was my dad.
So I'm going to guess that both of you are around the same age. So you mentioned like 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm not that much older than you, so this is fantastic. So you guys were growing up literally still in the 90s with all of these crazy Nicktoons going on. What was the first Nicktoon you remember watching, or were you guys like Cartoon Network kids?
Oh, I was a Nicktoon kid. I was a Cartoon Network kid. I was a big nerd kid.
Any cartoon that I could get my eyeballs on.
For me, the big one was always Kablam.
I
loved Kablam.
Probably, I would say, because I have these conversations with anyone who's an animation geek. I always ask, like, what do you think the most underrated show of the 90s was as far as animation goes? And Kablam is one I always point to, like,
oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, this was incredible, and no one talks about it right now.
Yeah, no, it's insane. one of the things that cemented our friendship was like all the weird sort of like idiosyncratic things that I watched that I thought that like me and my sister were the only ones who knew about. And then I would meet Brandon and I'd be like, man, you should check out this thing or this show or whatever. And he would be like, yo, dude, I love that thing. You know, like he already knew about it.
Dude,
and,
me too.
Yeah, one of those things was Kablam. We were literally talking about it the other day because we were getting ready for the podcast here. And we were like, oh man, Kablam, Action League Now, Life with Loopy, Prometheus and Bob. Like they had so many.
And let's not forget the true underrated gem, Sniz and Fondue.
I had reminded Skylar of that one too. Actually,
I know that after Kablam, Action League Now got its own like pseudo show. But the one, if you go back and watch, out of all of those tunes, the one that could be a show is Sniz and Fondue.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like it was pre-regular show.
Yes.
Yeah,
That makes total sense. The one thing I don't get, and this is, you know, as my hope is to one day be actually an employee for Nickelodeon, I would love to find out what legitimately is going wrong with the licensing rights for Kablam, because for those that don't know, because I've had to explain to a few, I know you guys definitely know, but I've had to explain to younger people about Doug, because I have a Nicktoons pop collection, Funko Pop, and I have them in order of Nicktoons, and I put the Doug ones first, but it's all the Disney packaging, so a lot of people will be like, why do you have a Disney character starting this run? And I'm like, no. So those early Nicktoons were not really under Nickelodeon's umbrella yet. They were still owned by the studios, and I think by like 95 when they had Rocco, which that was the first one done completely at Games Animation, you figure after that point any shows they were making would just make sure they owned. But Kablam, for some reason, I don't know what's going on, because that show is still really unreleased.
Yeah, it's super weird. Because especially a lot of the Nicktoons that, you know, were around at the time that we grew up with, and maybe it's because all those were sort of like a narrative thing. Like Rocco was weird, but it had like a story,
right?
You know, and Rocco got the new or Netflix movie, and you know, the Jungle movie for Hey Arnold. But again, that has like a narrative. Same thing with Invader Zim. But the one you don't see them like bring back up is Kablam, and perhaps part of it is like a narrative thing, because it's like, how do you know, because it was such like a variety show, like it also feels hard to bring into the now to some degree.
There wasn't really many sketch comedy shows aside from Kablam and cartoons.
Yeah.
And I've talked to
animated ones anyway.
Yeah, when Richard Horvitz came down to Epcon here in El Paso, we talked about the separation from like Invader Zim, and I wonder if it's the same situation as Zim, where Nickelodeon just doesn't want to do stuff. They just kind of sit on it there, and that was a problem with Zim for the longest time, I feel, until Netflix made a deal with them, and we got Rocco's and the Invader Zim movie.
Well, what was weird about that is the movie was done for like a year before it debuted on Netflix, and
I remember that
Nickelodeon had both Rocco and Invader Zim finished, and both creators, you know, constantly getting asked what's going on, because everyone thought, well, Arnold debuted during November, Christmas time, so let's see if it happens again. And it didn't. It kind of came and went. And both creators were like, we don't know. We're hearing rumblings of other mediums, because Arnold, unfortunately, didn't get the numbers it should have gotten on TV. But I think that's more or less just the way our society is now. It's hard to convince people to, like, schedule this specific time, like 8 o'clock on Friday, when everybody has Netflix. I think Netflix was the way to go.
Yeah, and I remember reading an article at the time where it was either with the Invader Zim creator. What was his name? What's his name?
Jonan Vasquez.
Yeah, Jonan Vasquez. Yeah, I think it was him, or maybe it was the guy from Rocco, who was talking about how they were like part of the marketing team at Nickelodeon, sort of with the flop, I guess, in terms of views that the Jungle movie was. They were like, well, maybe the audience that is clamoring for these sort of nostalgic movies has moved on to Netflix. Like, they're not watching Nickelodeon. You know, they're watching stuff on Netflix, even if they have kids, right? They're like watching, you know, kid shows on Netflix with their kids. So that was part of that move, which I was like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. But then I was like, why did it take a year? Why did it take them a year to figure that out?
I have no idea. You think like getting a contract like that with a company like Netflix would take at most a weekend? Like, yeah, sure, we'll get this on and we'll put it up. Is there another '90s show that you think should get the kind of extended episode treatment, movie treatment? Because I have one, but I wanted to see what you guys would say.
Okay. In terms of animation, let me see. Let me think. Angry Beavers would definitely be up there for sure in terms of animation. I would love some more Angry Beavers.
For me,
I think Angry Beavers is one of the other two shows from the '90s I can think of that hasn't had like a special episode. Even Cat Dog kind of had like a TV movie.
Yeah, and I remember that. I remember being so hyped for that.
It's very emotional.
Yeah, I was like, I need to know where Cat Dog came from, and so I was kind of mad at the ending. I remember as a kid, I was like, "What the? How did you?"
It's such a lame ending. It doesn't show their parents at all. It just shows the people who like picked them up and raised them.
Yeah.
It's not satisfying. Although I don't think it's a question that really needs an answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I think that's why it works. That's what, like, as I got older, I was like, you know what? I get it.
It's like
I get
the Force.
It'd be like a weird, what a weird thing to answer to. I don't think I would want to know the answer to that.
It has to be like a cat and a dog couple, I imagine.
Yeah, but
Beautiful.
then like, why did it? I don't know.
Gave
Too
them up,
many
like,
semantics
I don't know.
questions.
That might
Let's
work
not
as
go
like
down that rabbit hole.
a more adult story. Like
Mhm.
they put them up for adoption, or they just like abandon them.
Yeah.
The show I was thinking about, which I think could work as a 2020 movie, is Real Monsters.
Oh
how could I
my
totally
God,
forget
dude,
about
that's
that?
a
How could I
great
forget about
idea.
that?
I mean, think
Yeah.
about this. Almost every kid has a cell phone camera. How would the monster world work?
Oh man.
That's a great idea.
Which that was honestly
Man.
my biggest disappointment with Pixar's monster movies, because they didn't, even in 2003 or 4, there was more cameras and whatnot. How were they evolving?
Mhm.
You know, I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Which I guess is why Monsters University, you know, you do like the prequel, so it's like we don't have to wrestle with that issue.
They're not even going through doors until the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler
I was-
alert for anyone who hasn't seen Monsters University.
A little late.
I was on a podcast yesterday with my friend, and like we were debating titling the episode "Spoiler Alert" because we kept spoiling movies that are all at least like 5 years old at this point. Like they're like well within like the lexicon of like general knowledge at this point. Like
Yeah, saying the ending to the what's it called? Not Signs, The Sixth Sense.
oh yeah, we literally spoiled. That's what we talked about on the podcast actually. Because is it true? I never knew if this was true. If it was just like an internet meme where the Japanese title of The Sixth Sense was just "He's a Ghost."
Not sure about that either.
Yeah,
I'm really
I don't
not. It's one of those things that I think I've read that and then just accepted it as fact and thought it was funny.
yeah, no, yeah. It's a funny fact to bring up, so hopefully it is
It's
a
a good
fact.
trivial question to
Yeah.
like talk to somebody about.
Yeah.
Did you know?
But I was gonna say live action wise, I would go Pete and Pete.
Ooh.
Oh, I
yeah.
met those two. Those two are absolutely
Oh,
wonderful.
no way.
Yeah, they came to the Space Ballroom down here in Connecticut, and they did a show for their podcast, and it was really cool because I think it was only $50 to then get a ticket and then meet them beforehand. And it was a very
Wow.
small, intimate setting. You all had a chance to get things signed at their table. I got a Mr. Tasty like vinyl figure signed, and then you go up on stage and take a picture with them. It was very like you got your money's worth, because then they
Nice.
did a show also.
Dude, that is awesome.
I feel like
Yeah.
the Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network people are just the most down to earth, humble cats
Mhm.
in the world,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
I
sure.
agree with that. The people who
Yeah.
grew up with those shows, because I mean, you know, I feel like you couldn't have a show like Powerpuff Girls, like the '90s version, on today because of how violent it is.
Yeah, it's oh god, I love that. We need to do a Powerpuff Girls podcast.
It's even funnier that like back in our day, they would make
Talk
fun
about that
of
all day.
cartoon violence in our day.
Yeah, they would all the time.
It's like, the more things change, the more they're still
Yeah.
the same.
which is why I feel like that you can't reboot the Powerpuff Girls. That's why I feel like that reboot was so like A, poorly received, but B, I just think like it just didn't quite work because like Powerpuff Girls isn't like slice of life, you know. It was always a riff on like the anime kind of thing.
It was a love letter to anime. It was a love letter to animation, and what was really telling to me was to see the way they spoke about the character Miss Bellum, because the way they talked about her means they missed the point entirely, which was you had this very visually like Jessica Rabbit gorgeous woman who was the smartest person working in the government,
right? And and even her name, right, and her design, like she's like a brain with a stem, you know.
Yeah, and like, just that years later they boil it down to just we can't have that character design on television, and it's like I was a kid and I don't think I ever really like thought of Miss Bellum any less because of her design. I just don't get that philosophy.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I to some degree I understand, like, because you don't see her face, which is kind of part of the joke, but also it's like trying to have your cake and eat it too, I guess, a little bit. Like, like it's funny, but also like it's like women do not get the representation that they deserve. Like, because the mayor, the mayor makes absolutely no decisions. It's all Miss Bellum.
Yeah. But on the same token, I feel like just even the villains, I think there's a lot of trans representation as well.
Oh yeah, you do get a little bit of that. Yeah.
Powerpuff Girls was just very ahead of its time.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, it really was. What was crazy was when I at least through the maybe till like 1998, I didn't have Cartoon Network in my home because I don't think it came, like, our cable company didn't have access to it. But when I would go and stay some weekends at my grandparents, they lived in another part of Connecticut. So Friday nights, like, I was there right when Ed, Edd n Eddy debuted. Cartoon Fridays, and it blew my mind. So anytime I stayed over there, like, that was the one thing I was looking forward to, was watching these weird cartoons I've never seen.
Yeah, no, totally. That was such a great
flashbacks
time.
Now,
yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure the kids nowadays have a lot of great memories about the things that they're growing up with, because to some degree, like, as we get older, we become jaded with bitter, like, new stuff, you know, and it's like, the stuff I grew up with was awesome, but it's like, I know there's still some good stuff out there. I mean, I was well into, high school and college when Gravity Falls was happening.
Regular show.
And it's like they're incredible. Like, they're incredible pieces of animation and comedy and storytelling,
Regular Show was the first cartoon I watched as an adult that I loved as much as I loved cartoons as a kid. Like, I made sure to watch every episode because it felt like it harkened back to that time where they were trying to be edgy and adult, but at the same time it was still a kid show.
Yeah.
Very Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
Oh yeah. Space Ghost.
I'm actually, it's weird, like, as we're speaking, I'm looking down, and under my desk, I'm sure you guys remember The Big Pick on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Totally not bragging, but I think it was the first Big Pick. One of the things was every, 1,000 callers would get, they would give a TV and a DVD player. Yeah. And I called 4 or 5 times, and I was at my father's house, and I won, and this person speaking to me was like, oh, can you put your father on the phone? So he had to talk with him, and then in a couple weeks, and I still have this tube TV, like, under my desk, just because it's a prize. It's what I won.
That is I remember awesome. The episode of Space Ghost where they had everybody call in and vote for Johnny Bravo and other series that would, I think Johnny Bravo would go on. Yeah, of course. But then there was another show that would go on as well.
This one, they definitely did that in the early 90s. This one was the year that Billy and Mandy won.
Yes!
There we go.
Billy and Mandy, dude. We need a podcast about Billy and Mandy.
And they still made, even, like, they almost made every cartoon from that event into a show. Whatever Happened to Robot Jones, Megas XLR.
Sheep in the Big City.
Sheep in the Big City was one of them.
That's the one I need.
Sheep in the Big City. You know what blew my mind? I found out that Sheep in the Big City was created by Mo Willems. Yeah. And Mo Willems does all those wonderful children's books like Elephant and Piggy and
Kids Next Door.
Yeah. Oh well, no, that's
what's that, Mo Willems?
Oh wait, he does what? Wait, which thing did you say he did?
Mo Willems, who did Sheep in the Big City. He wrote a bunch of children's books. He's actually one of my favorite children's book authors. They're so fun to read to kids and everything. Elephant and Piggy books, and Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. Yeah. He's
so Elephant
good.
and Pig. I was a teacher like 2 years ago, and that was one of the biggest things.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Was those characters? That's so crazy. I never knew that. Now I'm looking him
Yeah.
up and like, good for him.
Yeah, he's his
Pretty sure he was on K&D.
writing is great. He might have been. Yeah. I mean, especially if he was associated with Cartoon Network at the time. Yeah.
But you know that kind of, I mean, that's interesting too. The big pick idea. It felt so big, but there's no way you could really do that now. You could, but because there's so many animators putting their own stuff out on YouTube, that's almost how things are getting picked up now. Is they're just finding people who are making stuff. Look at Justin Roiland, who was making really bad animations, really funny animations. House of Cosby's. And then eventually making the biggest cartoon in the world currently.
Yeah.
It's Adult Swim's leading moneymaker.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like the internet became the new cartoons.
Yeah.
To tie it back to Nick a little bit. But yeah, I actually shout out to a creator that I have never met or anything, but I just love their work recently. I think they're called Wonderkins, or Onekins. I forget what they're called, but they have this animated show that they've been doing recently on YouTube called Big Top Burger, and it is so funny and so weird, and it reminds me of like that bizarre, like surreal, like Adult Swim kind of humor, but it doesn't ever like tip into anything that inappropriate, so it's also not like it's not totally Adult Swim.
That was just so early 90s. Like
it's got that that late 90s kind of thing about it. It's so funny.
I feel by the late 90s though they were starting to really get a lid on things. Maybe I'm thinking more Nickelodeon, because Cartoon Network still pretty much kept things a little adult as much as they could.
That was always like my impression as a kid. I always felt a little bit like, my parents were pretty cool, but I always felt a little bit like edgy when I watched something on Cartoon Network, because I'm like, ooh yeah, Cartoon Network, they've got like Billy and Mandy, like the Grim Reaper and stuff. Like, oh, sick, you know?
Flapjack.
Well, then even then, like Nickelodeon, after a certain time, it goes to Nick at Night, but Cartoon Network has Adult Swim and Toonami, and like these adult things where Nickelodeon doesn't have that.
Yeah. The Nick at Night, I would flip over to Nick at Night to watch Fresh Prince and Full House, you know?
Yeah, who needs to see the 1000th rerun of the George Lopez show?
I was on the other spectrum. My parents didn't care what I watched, so I would watch all the Adult Swim stuff growing up. And it's like 7 o'clock, good, time for some King of the Hill, and then
the actual real bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
And then I was really hooked. So
that's how I watched Futurama for a long time, was Adult Swim. Yeah.
We spoke about like animators. You guys are animators on this collab that brought us together. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie Rehydrated. How long have you guys been animating before? Or let me rephrase that. How long have you guys been animating before you ever got onto the collab? Like, was this something you were doing long beforehand, or did you kind of recently start it and then this kind of fell into your lap?
We've always been really interested in animation. We started doing like little sketches, like just off of Adobe, like back in high school. Skylar and
I remember that.
Yeah. We just mess around with Skylar and I are one of our best friends, Carlos. And we just went on to make movies and stuff, but then we learned about this project and we got really thrilled, and we're like, well, why don't we just start our journey into animation?
Yeah, kind of take like a head first dive a little bit.
Yeah.
I know for me, I've always been interested in animation. I mentioned this on the podcast I was on yesterday. I was obsessed with, so there were like 3 movies I would watch like on loop at my grandma's house growing up before I had to go to school. Like the 4 years before I started going to school. It was Toy Story, Beauty and the Beast, and The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I always sort of attribute to why I have such an eclectic, like why I love animation as a whole, because it's like sort of the 3 tentpole mediums of animation, right? Like computer animation, stop motion animation, and cell animation.
There
right?
you go. Wow.
And then after that, like because of Toy Story 2, I just became obsessed with like the Pixar movies, like especially those first 11 movies. That's oddly specific, but those first 11 movies are such a perfect run of like theatrically created animation. And like those DVD commentaries became like my film school. Like I was like obsessed with that and obsessed with like animation and trying to figure it out. And I would do little stop motion things with my friend down the street. Actually, you reminded me of him right now when you're mentioning your friend from down the street. It's like, because I was like, that's what I would do. I had a friend in the 3rd grade just because he moved onto the same street as me, and we would like get together and make little videos, like little stop motion with like clay. And then recently I started getting back into animation because of the pandemic currently. So this project sort of dropped into our lap because I follow the Every Frame of SpongeBob in Order Facebook page.
I love it.
Which is so great and so funny. And around the time that it was posting every frame of the movie, the Rehydrated project got in contact with them, and then they posted onto the Facebook page, and they were like, hey, there's going to be a SpongeBob movie reanimated thing. So if you want to join, click this link and check it out. And I was kind of like, well, that would be cool, but I don't know. I'm not like, we haven't really animated stuff. I feel confident we could do it, but like we've only ever done tiny little things. We've made commercials where we've done a little bit of stop motion, but I was like, I don't know, maybe we couldn't do it. I'm not sure. And then I was just taking a shower one day, like a week later, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna go sign up. I'm gonna message the host of this project and just be like, I want to do it. How do I join? And so this is kind of this story makes me feel so happy because I messaged Woomy, who was the initial lead of the project, and I was like, hey, me and my friend, we do some work. We don't do really animation, but we've done stuff with like puppets and paper puppets.
We had just done Inbound Drift as well.
Right. Yeah. We did a short film called Inbound Drift where we did a lot of like sets made out of like foam core board and little like miniature sets and things like that. And we made a little robot out of like foam core board. So we felt confident that we could do something like that with puppets. And I linked him this short film that we made. And which has a lot of puppet work. It's very silly. And I was like, yeah, so, it's called Barksky and Much, which is a very silly title.
No, I like it. I generally like that. It sounds whimsical.
Yeah, no one would ever look it up unless they spelled Starsky and Hutch really poorly. But
those are the people you kind of want to stumble upon your work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, so as it turns out, I sent him the message and I was like, okay, I guess it's out in the open now. So if he says we're good to work on it, then we're good to work on it. If not, at least I shot my shot. Right. And then he sends me back like a minute later and he goes, holy shit, dude, you're the Barksky and Much guy? I love that thing. You're totally on board. And it made my day because that video only had like 200 views at the time.
Pretty heartwarming.
And it was just like, it made us both feel so good. It was like, oh man.
That's incredible. That's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. It was so good. It was like, wow, I put something out there and someone enjoyed it. And like, and I just happened to like, they happened to be in charge of this thing I wanted to join. And it was great. It felt so good. But that was our journey into the project.
Well, that's good. So, I mean, you guys have been hard at work now for then a little bit. Has it evolved more than your initial thought, or have you guys pretty much stayed the course?
I would say we kind of had an idea of how we were going to do it because the scene that we have in particular is both animated and live action. It's in sort of the third act of the movie. I'd say it's the top of the third act. Like the very, very top of the third act because we have the moment when SpongeBob and Patrick come back to life.
Yeah.
Which I'm so happy about.
Because that's a pivotal moment.
Oh yeah. I was scrolling through all the scenes and I was like, what's available? Nothing's available. The entirety of the Goofy Goober Rock sequence, totally taken. The entirety of Now That We're Men, totally taken. Like the entirety of the Goofy Goober scene at the top when SpongeBob and Patrick get drunk on ice cream, totally taken. I was like, what is there to do? Like I wanted something really significant, And so it's a 17-second moment of SpongeBob and Patrick pop back to life and then it cuts to the theater of all the pirates cheering in excitement.
Let me at least say this. This is crazy. You guys are actually animating my character in the movie.
Oh, man.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
I have Captain Bart, who is the pirate captain of the crew.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we're going to do a combination of live action and animation to sort of to keep that visual consistency. So one of the things we're going to do with the live action theater is puppets. Is part of that is the plan is to do some puppets.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I'll send you a picture of my face shot just so you know what to make the puppet look like.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, excellent. Yeah. What's up? Maybe we were like we can cameo in it too. We'll do our own little Hitchcock. We'll be in the audience with the puppets.
Goosebumps talking about it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, you might as well. I mean, you're making your part. You might as well slip some of your own little Easter eggs in there.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that too. We were like, how many seats could we have on screen at one time? How many of our characters in our short films that we've made? Like, how many could we squeeze in there? How many people should be wearing SpongeBob? We were like, everyone should have a SpongeBob themed like outfit on or something, or a hat or a flag or something. Yeah. Just like popcorn and everything going into the air. Like that would be so fun.
I want a lot of popcorn.
Yeah, oh yeah,
just popcorn flying everywhere.
You won't be able to see anything. It's just popcorn.
I literally, speaking of SpongeBob merch, there was the first shirt I ever got for SpongeBob was literally, I think, a season 1 or season 2 merch. It was probably the first time they ever dropped in stores, and I got this at a Hot Topic. Back when like Hot Topic was fairly scary to walk into.
Oh yeah,
and definitely not like as pop culture oriented as it is now.
I remember.
And I like for years I had no idea whatever happened to that shirt. Couldn't find it. Anytime I do a search, it's like this is searching for a needle in a haystack because how much SpongeBob merchandise has been released. You're just and there's no one out there like keeping pictures of everything. So, but like literally in the last month, I found it on eBay.
My god!
It's not even that. I'm gonna throw it in the Discord chat when I get over here. But yeah, that was incredible just to be able to find that and go, oh yeah, I wore that.
There's something really satisfying about like something in your memory that you're like, I can't really describe this thing. Like I don't remember the title of it, but I can kind of remember it. And you like dig and dig and dig. I've done that. I've spent many countless nights like
just the other
like hours. I'm just like, what is this thing that I can't remember? And then finally you find it, and it's like, oh my god, it's so such relief.
Just the other night, I had a song stuck in my head. I had the beat of the entire song, and I had what the chorus sounded like. And my roommate and his friend and I were just going nuts for like 3 hours trying to decipher what was in my head. And it was the song Return of the Mac. It wasn't even, it's a well-known like rap hip hop song. And I just,
yeah, I was like,
I heard it at some point, and then I just woke up the other day going like, what is this song in my head? I can't, But when you find it, it's such a relief.
That's me and my brother. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. It's
pure ecstasy.
Yeah. Return of the Mac.
Probably the most mature we've gotten on this episode thus far. With all this talk about Adult Swim. So we're going to take just a quick break, and then we're going to come back and dig into the Chaperone.
Excellent.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
2,000 years later.
Which, by the way, they should probably at this point do like a Nick at Night version at TV Land where they're airing I Love Lucy, like the old stuff that like used to air on Nick at Night when I was a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid, seeing that stuff, like switching from like Nicktoons to Nick at Night would upset me. So I would just switch to Adult Swim or Cartoon Network because I just had a hankering for more cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now would be perfect for that anyway, in many ways for old audiences and new audiences.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's safe to say we're back up from our break. We were having a nice conversation there. But speaking,
I gotta
of
say,
that
the shirt is awesome. By the way, the
I know, right? Like super simple. I love it. I wish I could find it now in my size, but
yeah.
So speaking of the first season of SpongeBob, our episode today is the Chaperone. It is the first episode of it's the first half of the 12th episode of SpongeBob.
12A.
12A aired first March 8th, 2000 in the U.S.
Whoa.
And that's incredible. I was 9 years old when this aired.
It was 5.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is important because this is our first episode where one of the main characters is Pearl. The episode is about her. It's about her night going to the prom. You guys are out of high school. Do you have any fun stories about your prom at all?
Oh boy. Oh man.
We're laughing like we have some crazy story, but
we got the mom story.
Which one?
The mom story. where I turned around to you and I was like,
"Oh
I
my
didn't
god,
have-
that was so funny!" Yeah. So this is kind of a Texas specific thing, actually, because in Texas, for the high school prom, you get your date what's called a mum, which is like basically this giant ornate. It can be small or it can be huge. Some of them are like bigger than the person. So it's just like this giant, like imagine like those like blue ribbons that you get at like the science fair where it's like the little like thing on the top is like a circle and then it's got the little like ribbon on the bottom.
Yeah.
So imagine that, but in like whatever school colors your high school was, 10 times bigger with like flowers and dozens of ribbons and like maybe it's in the shape of a heart or something. I don't know. Like just these giant things with messages. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of it is, but anyway. So the boys get the girl a mum, and the girls get the boy. What is it? A
garter,
like a garter, and they put it on their arm, and it's much smaller and it's not as like ornate. So Brandon had a date to the prom. I wasn't going to go. And we had to go interview our local congressman, actually, because we were in the broadcasting department in our high school. And we got to go interview the local congressman, which was really cool at the time. Not so cool anymore now that we know more about that guy. But at the time, we were like, oh, this is cool. And so like we finished the interview. We're waiting for our ride to come back around and pick us up. And Brandon gets a call. First he finds out that the girl that he's going to take out, she was expecting a mom and he didn't get one. And it was like, oh no. And Brandon calls his mom and he's like telling her what's going on. And he's like, hey mom, guess what? I didn't get the mom. And through the phone from like across this office, like boardroom that we're in, I can hear Brandon's mom go,
oh my goodness.
It was so funny. And I don't know what happened after that.
Oh, what happened at there? Oh my god. At the end of the day, I was able to get her mum.
Oh, well, that's good. Was it like a tiny one? It was like,
it wasn't tiny, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was a decent size.
Yeah, it was. This is a weirdly specifically like Texas story.
I figured it out. So
another prom, we all hung out and watched Boogie Nights.
See, there you go. I went to 3 proms in a row, and I don't have a single good story to tell you of any of them because it was just it's not exciting, and for me, it would be exciting for like the first half hour, and then I kind of just want to go home. Like I don't mind dancing and I'll have fun, but I actually enjoyed like we did Safe Grad like right after we graduated. We went to this this gym in town that has like a pool and racquetball courts and like all these extra things, and they're just like, hey, have fun for 5 hours on us and do whatever you want. Like I loved hanging out with my graduating class there, but like at proms, I just don't like being in a suit, so I just let's get out of here as quick as possible.
Too formal.
Yeah, we had a similar experience at our graduation. Although for some reason, all my friends, weirdly enough, I don't remember seeing you at all at that event, Brandon. The big thing at the country club. Yeah, I was with Brianna. Oh, that's why.
So
anyway.
You guys are from Texas. What are your thoughts on Sandy being like super pro Texas? What's what does that feel like having a cartoon character from your state?
I gotta tell you, it's a lot of fun, but also like the misconception of people. I remember in the 4th grade, we had a new girl come to our class from like Wisconsin or something. And she was like, this is so weird. I thought you guys wore like 10-gallon hats and rode horses to school.
That's like the most popular misconception.
Like
yeah.
Even 7-year-olds, everyone's walking around with a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
A handlebar mustache. Everyone's wearing flannel.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny. We got to put that in a movie or something.
But do you guys? I mean, so March 22nd, 2000, the episode Texas airs on television. Were you guys watching that? God. Do you remember?
Yes, we are. I remember that.
I remember.
I can't imagine the thought that would go through my head if I turned on SpongeBob. It's a new episode, and the title card comes up and says Connecticut. And I'm like, what? I can't imagine. So, what was going through your heads as young kids?
Brandon, you want to start us off with that answer?
I don't know. Like as a kid, I guess it didn't really faze me that that Texas was really that big of a deal. I guess mostly because El Paso has never really been recognized.
Yeah, people tend to the other half of Texas, the eastern side of Texas, kind of
and that's what gives
doesn't
Texas,
like El Paso for some reason.
That's what gives Texas the yeehaw. We wear gallon hats. And,
East Texas is more the
giant
yeehaw
barbecues.
Kind of yes, yeah. With Squidward, can't hold it. But I remember my sister and I thought it was the funniest thing. Like all the stupid stuff they say about Texas, we were like, "That's so funny." Can we say shoes from Texas are dumb? That like cracked us up. And I just, I think I was a little bit excited because there's just you get like a cheap thrill, like when we hear El Paso in a movie or something, there's just like a cheap thrill. Like it's like, I remember when we saw Django Unchained and it was like somewhere outside El Paso. We were like, hey! Like the whole audience was like, whoa, dude, El Paso in a Tarantino movie, crazy.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a moment like that because the only movies that are made about Connecticut are ghost movies. So it's like, oh, Indiana Jones is filming at a college. Oh, they're not gonna say it's from Connecticut. Okay.
No.
We had Steve McQueen too. So
Steve McQueen.
Yeah. Oh, well known. So we got the Chaperone. If anybody obviously wants to follow along with us, they can start at the beginning of the intro because we're just going to let that run. Why not? I mean, it's SpongeBob. And as long as you guys are ready, I have it on the go.
All right. Go ahead and you're going to play the intro. This one is starting right at the title card of the episode.
Okay. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll skip the intro. Everybody skip the intro who's listening. I don't know if anyone even follows along. I've heard maybe of one person who did it, and that was it.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
Got to be consistent, though.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right, and we can play it now. So, yes, we got our first Pearl Crabs-centric episode. And also the debut of Octavius Rex, although he would not really be a secondary character moving forward, just one of those characters that shows up once and then disappears unless they're like thrown in the background of a future episode.
Yeah. I love this opening, by the way. It's like all sound effects, and they're all like just the wackiest little, like SpongeBob was so good at that, is using all these little sound effects. The animation of him like putting the door back up with Pearl's tears like shooting out. Yeah, just this is a great little like intro sound effects wise.
I don't know if anyone caught that, but every person in the Krusty Krab was Fred. It's just different colors of Fred.
Yeah. That was something I noticed when I watched it earlier today. I was like, why is it all the same?
Hey, it's those corners you have to cut at the time.
Yeah.
My leg.
A lot of legs broken in this was one of the. I think this is the first episode. This isn't the debut of my leg, which was, I believe, the episode with the talent show.
Oh right, yeah.
But this was one of the earliest ones I remember watching, like audibly hearing it, because I probably heard it during the other episode, and then hearing it this time, going like, "Oh, that's funny." They're reusing the my leg part, and then realizing it was a constant bit moving forward.
Rev up those fryers. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
That's probably the one quote I love that I can't use in everyday life.
You got to get creative.
I think I'd have to really be creative to figure out, unless I just decide, you know what, I'm walking to the kitchen of this restaurant.
Is this foreshadowing?
Yeah, so this is foreshadowing, this little with the dummy, but it is such a strange, I don't fully understand the decision behind the dummy. Like, why is this happening? Like, why does he? I don't understand, but it is kind of, it's just so, it's this weird, like, bizarre humor that I feel like they really refined in further episodes.
Yeah, it's such a weird gag. There's no point to it other than to have a gag there. Yeah,
because when it comes up at the end, it's like, what? Like, what? So then what? So what just happened? Like, was it the dummy the whole time? This is Inception? Was he awake?
Yeah, this whole episode takes place in the dreams of SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Which is very possible. They've done a lot with dreams on the show.
Yeah. This was something that stuck out of my head as a child so much when he like plants the flower directly onto the suit. That just, I loved that. Long, tan, and handsome.
Yeah, I love the whole getting ready sequence. I've always enjoyed how creative, because it's never the same with SpongeBob. If he gets ready one way, you'll never see that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And every time is always a delight. But yeah, growing the flower right on the suit. You know what? I would rock a flower on a suit like that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Although I don't think I would.
I just noticed he spit out the the notebook to write what Pearl wants. I never noticed that before. He like hacks it up and then starts taking notes.
Long, tan, and handsome. Hey, you know what? Kudos to SpongeBob though. He may screw up the night, but he got a limo. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's pretty good. He's gonna have to pay for that though. The damage on the bottom of the car.
You think? You know what? Maybe it's Mr. Krabs paying for it.
Maybe so.
You know what? Maybe Mr. Krabs did pay for the limo and had it like go pick up SpongeBob first.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I love that gag when she sprays his arm and it like shrinks, the little sound effect and everything there. It's so funny.
Why did it shrink though?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what did she spray it? This also, I thought the sound effects of his legs. We've totally muted it, so we can't hear it. Yeah. But the sound effects.
It sounds like rubber bands and springs.
Yeah, I love that. That has always stuck out to me. Like as I was rewatching it, the sound. There are two big SpongeBob noises in this episode. That's a weird thing to say, but there are two big SpongeBob noises in this episode that I always loved. That always like make me laugh and are so funny. The first one is coming up when he. Oh no, we got an ad. That's okay. The first one is when he's reaching for the
ladle.
Punch. Yeah, and he's like
and
like the sound effect of it sliding through the punch and the ice and everything is like so.
I've at least had two moments in my life where I had to reach for something and knew, hey, the person with me would get this, and I was able to do it, and they got it right away. Like
this episode began my anxiety.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh, there we go. It's happening now for us. Let's skip ahead a little bit. The way the legs just like bend and everything. Like, how does he control it?
You know Brian from math class.
Oh,
I really wish that there were more characters that were Pearl's age that went to school with her that like at least were known name wise.
Yeah.
You know, to build that secondary character base, but
yeah, you could do a classic like sitcom episode. SpongeBob has to go to the school and like he's undercover or something, or like he's going because Mr. Krabs needs information about Pearl, and so SpongeBob goes undercover as a student.
That is absolutely genius. Like, I don't understand why that hasn't been done yet.
Call us Nickelodeon.
Yeah, Nickelodeon, where you at?
Where's
that Nickelodeon money?
I said a few things. I'm starting not to try to plug something, but I'm starting to like make a few videos. I want to review each show's Funko like collection.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I am starting with Doug, and at the end of each episode, I'm gonna kind of give realistic, like, hey, here are some realistic characters you could make, and then have some unrealistic ones. And when I was kind of writing down some of the ones for Rugrats, I was like, how am I not working for this company right now? Because I'm going to be giving them gold for free.
This is gold.
I'm writing your checks, damn it.
Brandon and I have definitely had those experiences before.
Oh yeah, way too many times.
Yeah, we've come up with like, oh, here's the next sound effect that kills me every single time. When Pearl is talking to SpongeBob through the bathroom door, and he's just like,
Sobbing.
like it's so
yes, you
fun.
can still wear the wig.
It's so good. That's probably the best gag in the whole episode.
So
If anything, the wig makes him look older.
Yeah, it's weird.
Although they were definitely going for a Jerry Lewis looking,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
nerdy haircut for SpongeBob.
Yeah, for sure. Now we come to probably one of the most violent sequences on SpongeBob before later episodes like the Splinter one or anything. This sequence is always kind of like hilarious and scary to me because Like,
I think your Daily Motion video is like slightly faster, but I'm
oh, is
slowly
it? Oh,
just.
okay. We might have skipped ahead a little
No,
bit
you
just
know,
to
it's
make up
fine.
for the
It's
ad.
all relevant animation. People,
Yeah.
you can follow along with what we're saying.
Yeah.
What is funny is if you look in the background while SpongeBob and Pearl are dancing, they have many fish that aren't outlined in black.
What?
Oh yeah.
I've
And
never noticed that.
yeah, and they look super creepy with just the stoic face and the eyes. As a kid, like it's one of those things that the second I saw it, you can't unsee it.
Oh my god.
That was like a
Oh
little
my
thing.
god. Yeah.
There they are. Oh my god.
Oh, Octavius Rex, long, tan, and handsome. He's
Oh my
bald.
goodness.
I feel bad for
Yeah.
him.
Why? Yeah. Why is she? I mean, I guess she has a type. Maybe I don't know.
Yes.
The guy crawling after his own legs is so. There's so many weird visual gags. Why the apple?
So it's a reference to the movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah. Okay. Technical tomatoes. Okay, I
But
got it now.
It's such a weird. If it was a tomato, okay, but they made it an apple, which is just.
Yeah, or at the very least, it's a very strangely designed. It looks more like an apple than it does a tomato. But yeah, the second you said that, I was like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
Wasn't George Clooney in
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
one of those?
Was
He
he?
was in one of them
Oh.
at some point. Whatever.
Hey, George Clooney got into some weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he was in Attack. Maybe one of the sequels that followed, but yeah, he was in
maybe.
the second one, Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah.
I love this. That's the first time they've done that gag, but they do that same joke again in
Yeah.
Wet Painters when Mr. Krabs is like, "Look what you did to my dollar,
Very
Rama."
innuendous.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like, "Get back for my flower," and then it's
Oh.
just actually a flower.
And then we have the dummy.
And then we have the dummy again. Yeah, what is that about?
I think he switched out right then and there.
Yeah.
So is it a robot or a dummy?
I don't think he wanted to deal with Mr. Krabs right there.
Yeah, probably not, right?
Yeah. I feel like everything else was real though.
Yeah.
Anyone else kind of a little disturbed about that Pearl was gonna kiss him? I mean, because the idea is that SpongeBob is supposedly like older than she is.
Right.
I don't know. It just
And-
always.
Well, as I was rewatching it, I was like, well, this is weird. Like, so this is like the plot that I described, like, he has to go undercover to like help Mr. Krabs gain some information or something. Like, he's like, what did I do on my junior prom? And I'm like, what? How old are you, SpongeBob, at this point in the show?
Yeah, it's one of those things that like he's old enough to have a job, live on his own, but there and it works for SpongeBob that he can play kind of as both a kid and an adult, and he's the perfect character for that. The only other character I can think of that can get away with it is Pee Wee Herman, which he was kind of based off of.
Right.
But yeah, like Pee Wee, it wouldn't, even though he's like older than a kid, if he did kid stuff, it doesn't seem weird. And then when he does older stuff,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem weird.
Yeah, they live in this nice, like, middle gray area kind of where you can write anything for them and it kind of works. And like the further you stretch it on either side, it like becomes funnier. You know, like when SpongeBob's trying to be like really adult, it's like it's like way funnier. And when he's like even more little kiddish, it's really funny. That's why like the Grandma's Kisses episode, I think, like works like gangbusters, because it's just like you have both of those, like you're pushing him to those two limits where he's like, I'm a man, you know, and he's the sideburns.
Yeah, well, they didn't realize all they eventually would have needed is just pieces of seaweed on their face.
Oh yeah. We have facial hair.
Which I have always maintained anytime people, because I'm a film guy. I love talking about movies and whatnot. So when people ask like favorite movies, SpongeBob is in my top 3 because it just works. You don't need to be a fan of the show to understand it or to laugh. And I just feel the writing, they were on all cylinders on that movie. And it's just super funny. It makes sense. It's a fun story. And I just love it. So, I mean, that's why when I saw it was getting remade, and trust me, it sounds like, man, this guy's a master of steering this conversation to certain areas. Not at all. I just drop into things. But when I came across this project, that's why I knew I had to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. even if it was just begging for like one line in the movie. Which of course I wanted to, make this podcast available for people working on it because it's a nice little helping each other out type deal. We're all fans of SpongeBob. We're all from different corners of the world, and we're all coming together to just create. We're here to be creative and to make each other laugh, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So I don't know how many other people you've spoken to who work on the collab, but every person is just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
When I learned that we were going to be part of this, I was smitting like a little kid, man. I was like, I was running around my whole house, and I went to my backyard. I was yelling at my sunflowers. My mom was like, "What's going on? We're going to be part of the SpongeBob reality project." And I was just losing my mind. And it's so cool that there's so many of us. Something about SpongeBob that's just really fantastic. It ages with us fantastically. And we could look back on it and catch jokes that we didn't. Just watching that, the Chaperone right now, I had no idea what the black and white characters. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right,
yeah.
right. No matter how many times you've seen an episode. I mean, there's even movies now that like I'll rewatch The Avengers, and my girlfriend will mention something I never caught in almost 10 years of watching that, going like, wow, how did I not catch that over 300 views?
Oh my God, we're coming up on 10 years of The Avengers.
Don't tell Martin Scorsese though.
I honestly believe.
Do not get me started. Don't get me started.
I honestly believe. Here's the thing. Hearing his comments, I don't think he's wrong, but at the same time, I think he has this idea. He has this wall that he's created over time of like, hey, here's these, everything behind this wall is an amusement park, and it's just fun for people, but it's not serious. And I wish I could tell him and bring him a little bit over and go, hey, let's watch Captain America Civil War. Let's watch Winter Soldier. Let's watch something serious that,
Two of the best ones. Hell
like,
yeah.
I think if you were to ease him in the right way, he would find an appreciation of it a little bit.
Right. And I do think like the thing that frustrated me the most was just like this, like, because Scorsese like was coming up when all the people before him that inspired him, they were like, well, cinema's dead because we're all getting old. We're not making movies anymore. All these young kids, they don't know what they're doing making movies. So cinema is dead. And then Scorsese comes in the game and he makes Taxi Driver and all his, great movies and everything. And then now, like, even dating back like 10 years ago, you can find interviews of Scorsese going like, cinema's dead. And I'm like, do you not see how you are doing the exact same thing? Like there's another Martin Scorsese out there, that you might be shutting down to some degree. Like, and to tie it back into everything, people tend to feel that same way that he does about like the Marvel movies about like animation.
It's still, I've always kind of kept my job really off the books on the show. But I will mention that I had a conversation in the last week where somebody came across something SpongeBob related that was fairly expensive. And they kind of mentioned that. And I was like, SpongeBob has been around for 20 years and is as beloved as Mickey Mouse. Because they were just questioning, like, how is this still relevant and why do people, like, what is it? It's just a cartoon. And it's like, this is a Mickey Mouse is a good example. It's multi-generational. What you loved as a kid, and if it's still around, you are going to share with your kid. We all grew up on Sesame Street at some point, or that might have been a show they might have tried to sit you in front of. Some kids don't like it, some kids do, but parents grew up with Sesame Street and then SpongeBob. So when I eventually have a kid, they're going to start with Sesame Street, and if SpongeBob's still on the air, I'm going to introduce that to them at an early age as well, and then enjoy that with them.
Oh hell yeah.
It's kind of the reason why, like, even stuff like wrestling, I could watch wrestling with my older cousins, and they could introduce this to me, and then I could be watching wrestling with their kids. It's just like stuff like that doesn't even just have to be animation, but it's nice to have something that continually grows, continually going, and that you can experience this no matter what age you're at.
Yeah. And to go back to, not to like to bring us super far back or anything, but to go back to you talking about the movie, it really is like a great movie. the SpongeBob SquarePants movie is so incredible. It is up there because not only is it a good movie, like you said, like it can stand by itself. It functions really well as like a series finale. Like it's a culmination of that whole show, like to some degree. You know, not to say that it didn't. There aren't good episodes after the movie, but it really does feel like, you know, if it had ended with the movie, it would have been like that. Would have been like that show still would have cemented its legacy. You know,
It would have. It really would have.
Yeah, and I also think it works in the same way that people don't talk about the Simpsons movie, which is like a perfect like movie adaptation of an animated television show. It is so good. It's like the culmination of like everything. Like the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and the Simpsons movie, I think, are in the same league of like,
without a doubt.
Yeah, they're so good. Nobody talks about them. Nobody's ever talking about the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. It is so strange to me.
David Hasselhoff,
the David Hasselhoff gag. I remember crying in the theater.
Here's what's really crazy to me, and let me see where your head is at. First off, I love any time a television show can make it to the theater, even if it's something I am not going to watch. I always am like, hey, I hope it's successful. You know, My Little Pony had a movie in theaters, I think, last year, and I'm completely. I know that there's a lot of adult fans, but I've never watched it. It's not appealing to me. But when they made a theatrical movie, I was like, I hope it does well, because when it does, that just makes every other channel kind of think about that. Like, hey, we should make a movie. I'm so disappointed the Fairly Odd Parents never got a theatrical movie at its height of popularity, because it could have been something big. But always, to go back to the first one, I loved the Rugrats movie more than Rugrats in Paris and Rugrats Go Wild, because it felt like such a massive adventure with actual life-threatening stakes. And I love Chucky, and I love the story about him wanting a mom. But I don't think his dad marrying a bad woman is a bigger threat than like toddlers lost in the woods with a wolf on the hunt.
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, that I agree with. But for me personally, I do love that second movie because those emotions when Chucky's alone. It's like, okay, it's time for the dance with the mom. And then Chaz comes up and is like, let's go home, Chucky. I'm like, why would you do this? This is so upsetting.
That's one of like my biggest fear of losing my mom developed.
Oh, yeah. No, dude, that was like, man, that movie was, ooh, that like hit me hard. And of course, Chucky Chan is a great sequence. But
I love that movie, but I've never met another person that has preferred the first one.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting take. I applaud you for your bravery in that. No,
look, I'll give this, as much as people get down on newer characters and whatnot. I will say Dill is far better than Kimmy and does not ruin the dynamic as much as she did. And there's nothing more iconic than the Reptar wagon.
I was about to say that. You stole
wagon.
The words right out of my mouth,
dude. I wanted the Reptar wagon so bad.
That's what I'm saying. Like that. And come on, like the fact that just like all this news comes in, like there's babies missing, the in-family fighting. The fighting within the Rugrats got really serious and kind of dark.
Yeah.
To me, it dark, fits on the big screen, whereas when I saw it in, like Rugrats in Paris and even subsequent watches, it feels more like a television TV finale. Like it doesn't feel, other than the big robot fight, it doesn't really get massive and cinematic.
Which is epic, you know, the robot fight I love. That's a great sequence. Like the kids controlling the Reptar robot and everything. And like Stu building it with like rubber bands and paper clips. Like, come on.
I don't know how that guy is able to build things like that and is still working out of his basement. His basement, mind you, that is still like just stone. It's not even like a... He didn't even add anything on the walls. It's just a crappy basement that he's working out of.
I gotta tell you, not to go off on a tangent here. This is a SpongeBob podcast, but the Mr. Fiend episode proved to me that like Stu he built a production like conveyor belt line, like automatically building toys. I don't like. Why wasn't he more successful? It was crazy. Like
you feel by all grown up, they would be like in a bigger house. Pickle Toys is selling through the roof.
Yeah.
It's probably my biggest disappointment of that sequel show.
It's weird. It's weird because it's like they fancy Stu. They like paint Stu as like a kind of similar to like Oscar Proud, right? Where like, you know, in the Proud family, he's like trying to sell his snacks, but it was like, your snacks are terrible, you know? But it's like Stu actually makes some pretty good like toys and things.
Sells.
Yeah. It's like he built
It's
a
his
giant
living.
robot for a theme park in Japan or in Paris. Sorry. Like I just,
I feel like there was always very subtle themes of for adults as well in SpongeBob, Rugrats, Wild Thornberries, a lot of stuff like that.
yeah.
For us to watch along with as kids and then to grow up into.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, and I've mentioned it a few times on this show, just my love of when I was young watching Rocko's Modern Life and then watching it again as an adult and getting all of the jokes and having that like wonderful reappreciation, because then I can turn around and go to every other adult my age and go, hey, you remember Rocko's Modern Life? Yeah. Do you want to see how many messed up jokes there are in that show and then blowing someone else's mind? I love that.
Which I just remembered something I wanted to point out about the Chaperone is that the guy who shouts, "Go ruin someone else's prom," is Tom Kenny
as
doing his
Heifer.
heifer. Yeah, he's go ruin someone else's prom. Yeah,
I absolutely love that. And I mean, Rocco, you can't have SpongeBob without Rocco.
yeah, because Hillenberg worked on Rocco. He was a director on Rocco. Right?
Well, yeah, from everything I've heard is that when Nickelodeon, because they would keep pitching like, hey, if you work on a show, pitch us. We want more shows. And it was people who worked at Rocco that were pushing Steven Hillenberg like, hey, you should pitch a show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's so cool when you see that like legacy of people, you know, because like almost every show on any major animation network, Cartoon Network, or even like Disney, well, all three of those channels, Cartoon Network and Disney and Nick, like you can see how they sort of cross over with each other, and like how the people who worked on one show go on to make another show that's really great. And like, you know, Brandon and I were just talking the other day about sort of the lineage of like, what's his name who made Flapjack? What's his name?
Thornton.
Thornton. Man.
And something.
Yeah. Well, on his show, he's got Alex Hirsch, J.G. Quintel, and Pendleton Ward all working on Flapjack
as lead directors.
Yeah, and then they go on to do Gravity Falls, regular show, and Adventure Time. You know, and it's like, wow, like that's so cool. But you see that again also.
Van Orman.
There
yes, yeah,
we were
there
close.
You go. Thurup, yeah.
It's been seeds, I think, planted over generations.
You
know,
super duper see that.
You know, growing up, we had Genji Tartakovsky and Craig McCracken.
I love Craig McCracken.
The fellas who worked on Johnny Bravo, because they were all roommates at CalArts, and then we had, you know, the Adventure Time lads. And
I remember
speaking of Johnny Bravo, let's not forget both Seth MacFarlane and Butch Hartman were writers on that show.
Yes.
And Seth MacFarlane, like that was where they brought in Adam West to be a guest star in Johnny Bravo, in which would started the friendship for both guys, who would then end up putting Adam West in their own shows.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. See, like if you sit back and think about it, it's just crazy. Which Chowder 2, probably the most underappreciated Cartoon Network show ever.
Oh, Chowder's great.
Chowder
My favorite bit in Chowder is when they run out of money, and then it's just them in the studio.
Car wash.
Yeah, and then they go to the car wash, and they finally get the money back. Which they do a similar gag in Gumball, which is also hilarious. It's so like beautifully done, where like they're running out of money, and then it's just like their Post-it notes, and then it's like they're storyboarded. It's so funny. It's like it's so good, and just all the crazy things you can do with animation.
Well, then C.H. Greenblatt moving right over to work on Harvey Beaks for Nickelodeon, which I didn't get into, unfortunately. But it seems the one thing I'll give Nickelodeon crap for is so many times since like 2006 they've had a show, and if it doesn't like kill in the first or second season, they just move it to Nicktoons, and it almost like dies a death. It just like disappears.
Yeah,
it's a purgatory almost, because like we're just getting reruns.
I would say that's sort of the big issue I have with SpongeBob and Nickelodeon, and SpongeBob being on so long. I mean, although it is great that it has this long-lasting legacy and everything, I think the issue is that Nick wants another SpongeBob. They're like, we don't really want to waste time if the show's not going to give us as much viewership and merchandise ability like SpongeBob does.
I mean, they're not going to find that. They're really, other than
Yeah, they're not.
Rugrats
Yeah.
and to an extent Fairly Odd Parents, no other cartoon has had sustainable merchandise in stores. But
Yeah.
to be
Ever.
fair, for some shows they never even really tried. Danny Phantom, for one, was highly misused while it was on the air. They should have, other than a Burger King promotion, they really should have. I've seen Butch Hartman post up pictures of like prototype action figures, and Nick should have at least attempted.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like you look at there's like the behind the scenes documentary about the Powerpuff Girls, about the making of the Powerpuff Girls, and all the merchandise they made for Powerpuff Girls. I'm like, that is so cool. Why didn't they make more merchandise for other like Cartoon Network shows? I would have bought the hell out of
looking
like
back as
Billy
a
and
kid,
Mandy products and like
man.
whatever other shows were on Cartoon Network.
I would force my parents to find me Dexter's Lab toys, and I was able to find some as a kid.
I forced my mom.
Yeah.
I like my mom. Like I was like twisting her arm. I was like, something Foster's Home, please. If you can find
Yeah.
anything Foster's Home, and she managed to find a really cool box set of figurines of all the main friends and Blue
That's
and Matt.
crazy. That box set is sitting in my living room.
Dude. Yeah, it's awesome. Those figurines are on my shelf.
I'm
except
so
the
glad.
Rogue
It's
one
one of
is,
the
like-
only times I ever bought anything from CartoonNetwork.com, like the shop, because I'd always have to go through my mother, and it was just never a like. I would not want to hear the no, so I wouldn't go through with it. But I asked for
Yeah.
that for like a birthday, and I got it.
I remember my mom got that for me because she was out of town for some conference or something, and she was at they had like a Cartoon Network store. I forget where it was. But she was like, "Oh well, Skylar likes that Foster's Home show, so I'll get him for that. You know, I'll get that for him. You know."
I think
which is
the
awesome.
I think that the scare might come from the fact that if you push merchandise for a show and it doesn't do well, it looks bad on you, worse
Mhm.
than if it just doesn't do well in ratings.
Yeah.
Because they don't try merchandising for a lot of shows. I think even the last time Nickelodeon even attempted with the whole. Now, I'm not going to count Ninja Turtles because there's always been Ninja Turtles merchandise, so they kind of just came into that world. But Avatar: The Last Airbender is the last show that I can think of that
Oh my God.
was started at Nickelodeon and had a merchandise in stores, and I don't think it sold well.
I feel like a lot of networks or just merchandisers themselves were very at fear with competing with people like Bandai and who's
Like
people who
Mattel.
made Hasbro, Hasbro,
Yeah.
because Star Wars was also very big at the time because we had the prequels. So there was
Yeah,
Star Wars
yeah.
action figures, and that's one of my biggest action figure collection as a kid were a bunch of Star Wars clones. So, and then they had the Clone Wars cartoon from Jendy Tartakovsky. So,
Yeah.
I feel like networks saw a big overshadow on them, and they couldn't compete with rather because of that specifically. So they had to work with specific retailers and even toy makers. Like because I remember McFarlane Toys producing a lot of stuff specifically for like I think Adult Swim.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but it's just weird that I just think it was the toy retailers at the time fearing the shadow.
Well, even
Yeah,
They
right.
couldn't set it to-
Because then, yeah, it's like if we're gonna produce this and we're gonna get a cut of it or whatever, like it needs to sell well, and if it doesn't sell well, it's like what's the point? And
So they were holding Star Wars toys to that
and
standard.
television definitely, especially at that time, not regarded as highly as film.
Right.
You know.
No,
So,
no, and honestly, the Nickelodeon brand itself, other than what Funko has created, a lot of other stuff that is being made, like there's on Entertainment Earth, for example, they have like a really deluxe Stimpy action figure coming out, but that's just like a one-off. I know that Jazzwares a couple of years ago made a whole line of Nickelodeon Nicktoons, mainly characters that really didn't get a chance on store shelves. They made a Danny Phantom action figure. They made a Timmy Turner one. And they had all these like sets of mini characters and whatnot. I don't think it sold that well. And it was just kind of upsetting. Like, I know that the market is out here for these. I know that there's fans like me who would buy these off of store shelves, but it was just one of those things that like Toys R Us had it. After a couple of months, it was clearance. Like, get it off the shelves. It's not selling.
I think the biggest problem was they were marketed towards fans as collectibles instead of toys. The actual children fans who would grow up watching it.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think because also I'm thinking about it now, and you see a ton of merchandise for cartoons for adults.
Mhm.
You know, I could look up a bunch of products for Rick and Morty, for Bob's Burgers, like tons of merchandise for that kind of thing. And so I'm assuming part of it also is the fact that like, you know, they can hedge their bets on those things because, you know, the adults are watching those shows. Adults have paychecks and, you know, they have money to spend. Kids don't. Kids have to convince their parents.
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah. There's I forgot what company it is, but I think it might be NECA, who does a line of where they make horror characters look like Saturday morning cartoons.
It's NECA.
Yeah,
they just released the recent line.
But next to that, I saw that they were making an entire line of Saturday morning cartoon characters of Bill and Ted and Ace Ventura and Back to the Future.
Dude.
Like, and that I never had this moment where I like thinking about this of these characters are like 30 years old and they're finally making figures of these and they're just for adults. Like they're not for kids because who grew up with the Ace Ventura cartoon. Someone my age. Who else is going to buy that figure?
We like if we ever wanted something out of cartoons, we would have to get them at a Happy Meals or something.
Yeah,
I remember I got the whole watch collection of SpongeBob and all of like the SpongeBob Around the World toys when they gave them at Burger King.
Oh yeah,
I bought them off of eBay.
Yeah,
I still have Mountie SpongeBob right on my desk.
I have Tai Chi SpongeBob.
Not to like go totally off topic, but I believe my Rocket Raccoon statue is a NECA. Is a NECA product.
They make great products, but it's definitely just like it's crazy that now more than ever there's just being adult collectibles are more popular now than they were yesterday. Like every day there's just more and more people hopping onto this buying. I mean, even just looking at like Funko, how crazy those releases get.
Yeah,
the kids finally have money.
Yeah. There's a SpongeBob pop I need for my collection that is literally $1,000, and it's like at some point, even if I sell things, I'm gonna have $1,000 that I'm going to give to somebody else for this piece of vinyl for a toy, just to say, all right, my collection's complete.
Yep.
That blows my mind, and I hope my mother never hears about it. But I
didn't want to tell my parents how much the Rocket Raccoon statue was. I was like, I'm not going to tell you how much it is, but it was a lot of money.
If my mother ever points anything out, like, hey, did you recently get this? Like, don't talk about it. Don't worry about it. We're not going to. Before we go, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to plug any of your sites, your social media. Wherever you want fans who listen to this and want to know more about you or what you do, where do you want to send them?
Yeah, so you can follow us everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We don't have a TikTok yet.
Thinking about it,
yeah. But we have Truman Pictures, and we're Truman Pictures on all of those platforms. Our logo is a little cat with a bow tie. I think we're going to update the logo soon, but probably not soon enough, so it's easy to see. And if you go to our YouTube channel, also Truman Pictures, you will see you can find the short film that got us into the SpongeBob Rehydrated project, Bark Ski and Much. We worked really hard on that. It's very, very silly. If you like 70s cop shows, or dramatic detective
soap opera
soap opera kind of things, but with puppets of animals and real animals too, which a lot of people were like, how did you do all those things with all those animals?
Cat treats
it's
and
magic
and dog treats.
Don't give the magic away. Just
we will
sell yourself as a pet. Like I can make them do whatever I want.
We've done. This is the second short film we actually made that heavily featured animals.
We're just animal guys, I guess.
We just like to put animals in them. We love our pets. But anyway, Bark Ski and Much, and we're actually going to have some more short films coming out soon. If you want to look for them in conjunction with our buddies at Gyro Studios. We have a short film called Reply All coming out, and we have a short film called Crisis at the Corral, which is a goofy Western movie as well, where we do some really, really wacky stuff. So yeah, we've got a few things, but Truman Pictures. If you follow Truman Pictures, you'll get to see all that good stuff. But especially Bark Ski and Much, we're very proud of that, and it is what got us into.
I'll certainly check that out and repost it wherever I can. And
Thank
you
you,
guys
thank
so much for being on. We could probably talk for another 2 hours just about this kind of stuff, which we
Oh,
will,
yeah.
because I'm going to have you on a future episode of the show. So
Oh,
Yes.
it'd be great to come back, and thank you so much for having us, man.
Nope.
We're such SpongeBob nerds.
absolutely,
Yeah,
no
dude.
problem. This is I love SpongeBob, and I love talking to people who also enjoy the really nerdy things I'm into. So
Hey, yeah, I was very excited today. I was like, finally, my knowledge of SpongeBob, my deep well of knowledge of SpongeBob is finally going to come in
Time
handy.
to shine.
Yeah. My time to
this is
shine.
my
Yeah.
moment.
Time to prove to my dad that I could actually, make money talking about SpongeBob.
I've gotten to prove that to my dad, who just gave he used to. I mentioned this last time. It was like SpongeBob was one of two shows, this and Courage the Cowardly Dog, that he would sit down and watch. And
Oh, yes, Courage the Cowardly Dog. We need a Courage podcast.
Courage, yeah, that needs to happen ASAP. All right, hey, thank you guys for being on.
Thank you,
you
man.
so much,
Thank you,
dude.
Captain Eric.
We'll talk to you El Soonerino.
Yes, we will.
Arg.
Adios.